Thank you very, very much, Dan. Appreciate that. Um, let's go. Today, I again, pardon me, want to show that business writing doesn't have to be dull. It can be engaging. An example of this is something I'm very proud of. A few days ago, I attended via Zoom the launch in Honolulu of a book I edited. Here's the book. It's called Paddling the Outrigger. I'll be posting a blog item about this on Sunday, and I'll preview it now as an example of business writing I hope you'll find engaging. But first, a bit of background. The book's author, Dr. Richard Kelly, is the retired CEO of Hawaii's premier hotel chain, Outrigger Hotels and Resorts. The idea for the book, an unusual type of memoir, came from my former boss, Kitty Yanone, the CEO of Hawaii's best PR firm, where I worked till I moved to Santa Rosa in 2013. Dr. Kelly was Kitty's first client. Even before they met, he'd started a weekly newsletter, Saturday Briefing. Over 33 years, he wrote over 1,600 lead articles. Starting in 2003, I edited his articles every week. It was my favorite assignment. Why? Because Dr. Kelly, yes, he's also an MD, because he didn't write the usual corporate drivel. His stuff covered much more than company news. He wrote about the economy, current events, health issues, world travels, interesting friends, and lots more. When Dr. Kelly told Kitty he was thinking of writing a book but didn't know where to start, she suggested a compendium of some of his best articles. I was asked to edit it. That meant that that first I had to find his best stuff. So with the help of a summer intern who dove into a dusty archive, I reviewed all 33 years of his articles, picked the best ones, organized them by topic, and then edited what became 24 chapters. Here's how I'll tell the story in my blog. Last Monday, meaning this past Monday, last Monday was a big day for an old friend, Dr. Richard Kelly. I say old, not just because he'll soon be celebrating his 88th birthday, but also because I've had the pleasure of working with him now for nearly 2 decades. Monday was big because it's when his just published book, Paddling the Outrigger, was launched. The launch took place via Zoom at an appropriately prestigious venue, the Hawaii Book and Music Festival. It was a pretty big day for me too, since I edited the book, and its publication was the tremendously gratifying culmination of over a decade, off and on, of effort. I'd been working with Dr. Kelly on the project since our mutual friend and colleague, Kitty Yanone, suggested a great format for the sort of a book that Dr. Kelly had long wanted to publish, a look back at the nearly 5 decades in which he grew into the role of senior statesman of Hawaii's visitor industry. Dr. Kelly looked back through the virtual rearview mirror of the roughly 1,650 articles he wrote for Outrigger's weekly newsletter, Saturday Briefing, from 1984 to 2016. It's not easy to shoehorn a description of paddling into a few paragraphs. So I'll simply repeat here how I described the book for its front flap. Little did I know when I signed on as editor that I might one day be asked to create blurbs for the flaps. So here it goes. Paddling the Outrigger covers too much ground to be easily described in this small space. It includes many of the most significant writings that its author, Richard Kelly, produced during the more than 4.5 decades he led Hawaii's largest and most diverse hotel company, Outrigger Hotels and Resorts. As Dr. Kelly writes in the introduction, he chose articles that will give the reader a greater understanding of his family's experiences, the story of Outrigger Hotels, a feel for Hawaii in days gone by, the observations and philosophy of a successful businessman, what it's like to conduct business in Hawaii and globally, and what it's like to live and work in the most beautiful place on earth. The author expresses the hope that the book will prove relevant and engaging to a variety of audiences. Readers interested in old Waikiki and some of the characters who inhabited it, those who'd like to relive the experiences of a boy who witnessed Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, students of the visitor industry, those who are curious about lessons learned from traveling around the world, and insights developed about business, the economy, government, education, and healthcare. The wide range of topics, Dr. Kelly writes, is intended to give readers a feeling for the similarly broad range of experiences encountered in the hospitality industry, where you never know where the day will take you. This book, however, transcends the story of a company and its people. It's not just about the company that Dr. Kelly led, it's also about a way of doing business and working in an atmosphere of mutual respect that is pervasive in the cultures of Hawaii and many other places around and across the Pacific and Indian Oceans. It's been an honor, and this is the end. That was the end of my flap. It's been an honor and a privilege to have been entrusted with editing this book. After all the time and effort required to get here, I'm immensely gratified and delighted to finally see it in print. And here's the author's bio that I wrote, which is at the very end of the book. For most, this will also give you an idea of a different kind of business writing, kind of corporate bio. For most of the past half century, Richard Kelly has been not just the most tireless, articulate, and visionary champion of Hawaii's visitor industry, but arguably the single most consequential figure in its growth, development, and endurance as a global top-tier tourism destination. The road that Dr. Kelly, who's also an accomplished MD, the road that he took to this place in the pantheon of Hawaii's captains of industry was not merely the road less traveled, it was uncharted. The oldest child of Hawaii's pioneering hoteliers, Roy and Estelle Kelly, Richard did not seem predestined for stardom. The beginnings of a lifelong struggle with dyslexia obliged him to study twice as hard as everyone else to earn A's. That perseverance propelled him to Stanford and Harvard Medical School. While Dr. Kelly often says he's a lucky guy, he's doubtless overlooking what Thomas Jefferson believed about luck. The harder I work, the more of it I have. While he got a taste of hospitality working as a teen in his parents' first hotel, hauling luggage and linens up 5 flights of stairs, serving pineapple juice in the courtyard, and balancing spreadsheets into the wee hours, Dr. Kelly didn't return to the family business till his father lured him away from medicine with a request for much needed, quote, part-time temporary, unquote, assistance in the family's mushrooming enterprise. As his parents eased toward retirement, Dr. Kelly found himself picking up the reins and figuring out how to more professionally run and modernize a company, Outrigger Hotels and Resorts, that had outstripped the capacity of mom and pop management to guide its growth. In the ensuing 4+ decades during which Dr. Kelly was not merely paddling the Outrigger, but steering it to its place as Hawaii's largest and most diverse hotel company, he left as great an imprint on overall travel and tourism in Hawaii as on his own company. For his unflagging uphill effort to spearhead the creation of a convention center in Waikiki, which opened in 1994 after 15 years of his never say die leadership, he was honored as the father of the convention center. For years, Dr. Kelly wrote about the importance of travel and tourism to Hawaii's economy. Quote, in Hawaii, tourism is everybody's business. That was his mantra. It was the goose whose golden eggs benefit everyone. He repeatedly entreated the politicians, boost state funding of tourism and marketing, and refrain from excessively taxing visitors. He also had Outrigger heavily underwrite 4 late 1990s studies by the London headquartered World Travel and Tourism Council that detailed the visitor industry's gargantuan impact on Hawaii's economy. In 1998, he played a critical role on the governor's Economic Development Task Force, whose recommendation to substantially boost funding for the visitor industry marketing proved key to ending the state's decade-long economic slump. Beyond his efforts to support Hawaii's visitor industry and economy, Dr. Kelly's public spiritedness found outlets in initiatives and philanthropy in health, the environment, and education. In the early 1990s, he poured considerable energy into chairing the state's Commission on Performance Standards for public school students. Now retired in Denver, Dr. Kelly and his wife, Linda, had a family of 7 children, 15 grandchildren, and 10 great-grandchildren. Paddling the Outrigger. Thank you.
That is terrific.